What was the deadly wound that John speaks of in Revelation chapter 13? The deadly wound that was healed. Historicists unanimously agree that the deadly wound was struck against Antichrist's kingdom, that is, the papacy. And that deadly wound was the Protestant Reformation. The Protestant Reformation took down the Vatican. It reduced the Vatican's power by 50%. It was, in fact, a wound that threatened to destroy the entire papal system. And many reformers believed that that was what was going to happen. They really didn't have a sense of that deadly wound being healed. How could they? It hadn't happened yet. But today, as historicists, we can look down the corridor of time and we can see clearly that when papal Rome replaced Caesarian Rome, Antichrist emerged within that papal system. And we can see the deadly wound being struck by the Protestant Reformation. And we see the Vatican struggling to recover, introducing the Jesuits into the mix. And we can see Napoleon Bonaparte striking another blow. And at that point, we see the Vatican diminished. No longer was it a world power. No longer was it a nation, a country, a sovereign nation, but that was stripped away by Napoleon Bonaparte. At that point in time, the deadly wound was very obvious. Yet by 1929, the Vatican started to reemerge. It started to recover. And the symbol of that initial recovery was when Mussolini and the Vatican signed the Lateran Treaty. That reestablished the Vatican as a sovereign nation and the Pope a king over that country. And with that reinstatement came all the diplomatic status awarded any country, nation, king, president. And therein begins the recovery from the deadly wound. At that point, the Vatican began signing concordats with every major nation in the world. Today, they have signed agreements with every nation. Every single nation has a concordat with the Vatican. That is a functional, working agreement. But has the deadly wound been completely healed? No, it hasn't. There's still a big problem, and this is what the Vatican is working overtime on right now. And that is ecumenism, to bring back the separated brethren, that's what they call them, back into the fold of Mother Church. The deadly wound was the Protestant Reformation. The complete healing of that deadly wound will be the reassimilation of all that is Protestantism. And when I say Protestantism, I mean all the so-called non-Catholic Christian denominations. So for the sake of this conversation, when I say Protestantism, I mean everything that's not Catholic. These are the daughters of Mystery Babylon. That is part of that blow that was struck to one of the heads. Right now, in America, almost every major church, and without equivocation, I will say every large denomination, pays homage to the Pope. Every one. And even down to the small little backwoods pastors with a dinky little church in some little town in the middle of the South, they're teaching Jesuit futurism. You can see the groundwork for all that is non-Catholic Christian to come back under the auspices of the Vatican. How is this going to be finalized? It will be finalized, as Vatican II states, through the Eucharist. The Eucharist is the Vatican's key word for ecumenical completion. When all Christians, so-called Christians, partake of the Eucharist, it doesn't matter what Protestants think the Eucharist is. They can believe it's the Lord's Supper or a free glass of wine. It doesn't matter. The Eucharist is the unifier. And so, we must be looking to see which churches, which peoples are taking the Eucharist. Any church that is taking the Eucharist, again, it doesn't matter what they think it is, when they practice the Eucharist, they are submitting to Rome. And that great blow that was struck to the Vatican, to the Antichrist, is being healed. This is what the Vatican is looking for. It is unnecessary to embrace every Catholic doctrine. No, it is sufficient that you, as a Protestant, Baptist, evangelical, whatever, take the Eucharist. If you take the Eucharist, then whether you know it or not, you have now been assimilated back into the Vatican. When this is accomplished, by and large, then the deadly wound is healed. Fortunately for us, the Lord has held that back, because when that happens, the Vatican will return to its medieval ways. It is only being restrained from unleashing its full fury by the power of God. God is pulling his people out of that institutional church system. He's waking them up, and it is a small few. The majority are marching headlong back into the belly of the beast. When that is accomplished, then the wound is healed. Then God help us.